From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report. Fenton, co-founder of World of Wonder, here, joined by Tom Campbell, our Chief Creative Officer.
Hello.
James St. James.
Woo!
Literary sensation beyond words. And, we're counting down the top 10 things of the week to make us go, wow! Let's do it. Let's start at number 10, Tom.
Number 10.
She's back. And can I just say, better than ever? Lady Gaga. I'll just jump to it because we know the new album's out, Mayhem. There's a Sirius XM channel called Radio Gaga, a number 15.
That's funny.
Where they're obviously, she's promoting her album. She's talking a lot on it in between songs, and it's her inspirations as well, which, range from, like Whitney Houston to Sarah Vaughan to David Bowie, and acts that are so cool, I don't even remember their names, but James would know them. Probably Fenton would too. Here's the thing about Gaga. She's such a performer. She's so performative. She is so affected on one level. And yet I find her so deeply soulful, and she connects with me as an artist so completely.
But here's the thing too, because she's a chameleon in that when she was doing her SNL monologue, which I'm going to talk about later, she was so vulnerable and she was just like a little girl. So she goes from like this affected theater kid to this vulnerable girl. Like she's everything all at once. She's jazz, she's rock, she's everything.
And in listening to her Sirius XM, like the vocalists that she chooses, the songs that she chooses, they are all about theatricality, whether it's jazz or Bowie or, or heavy metal or Whitney Houston's I'll Always Love You. There is that element of performance and of extreme emotion and sort of death-defying artistry that is Lady Gaga. There's so many artists that you can kind of pinhole or think they're one thing or they shock you because they're not this, they're the other. And Lady Gaga isn't mono, she isn't stereo, she's like prolific. And I thought she was funny. And again, she's not, I loved her monologue on SNL. I guess you're talking about it later, so I'm sorry if I'm
No, go.
I thought it was great. I thought she, is self-deprecating in a way that's very believable, and I've said this before, and this is a humble brag or not humble brag, but got to witness her working with Rue on that Thanksgiving special with the Muppets years ago.
God, that was so good. Do that every year, please.
And then she came to Drag Race that one time where she came into the workroom as dressed as drag queen, which is a turning point in the Drag Race history because we were on Logo up to that point, which was fine and amazing. But it was like 8th or 9th season. Lady Gaga came on, and that gave everyone at then Viacom the wherewithal and the confidence to take Drag Race to VH1 and then to MTV. So we owe so much to Gaga, and she's not asking for any praise like that, but it's true. And when we were working with her, she was so present. She was so there. And at one point she stopped everybody and she turned to us and they were like in between stages. And she's like, I just want to say, this is one of the best professional days. Like she just paid us a compliment that artists don't have to. She looked us in the eye, and stopped. And part of me cynically that night was like, because you're so
puffed up. That to everyone.
And if she does, God bless her, because she's just taking that time as someone you're working with who has such a profound effect on people and saying good work and thank you. And I don't believe that if she was having a bad time, she would have taken the time out to do that. So she was in her element, and I'm enjoying the album. People are complaining it's a little reductive, if I may use a Madonna phrase, who's also one of her influences on the thing. But I think they're growing. All the tracks are growing on me. There's, Dua Lipa's doing dance music. Kylie does dance music. Less and less, as I'm always scouring for lip syncs for your lives for Drag Race and All Stars. Less and less artists are doing great music, but it doesn't have that, those moments and that drama and the poppity pop and those zoom up and down. Gaga lives in that space, and she and many others too. So I think it's someone said, and I kind of agree, it's a little nostalgic and future forward at the same time, and I love that.
I've heard it is like Taylor Swift's 1989 and Gaga's like Born This Way. mixed together. There is a song on there called How Bad Do You Want Me? It's my favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
And it's very Taylor Swift.
Yes.
And there's even rumors that she did backing vocals on it, but who knows?
I sort of feel it. I've only heard a few of the cuts, and it feels very much like quintessential Gaga on the one hand, but then just a level of kind of where perhaps some of the changing of roles might have seemed frenetic earlier, and it just seems very stable. Do you know? And sort of familiar yet not derivative or pastiche.
There was that moment during the Grammys when she premiered Abracadabra, the video, and you're like right there and you're like, this is fantastic. And then all of a sudden they start doing that dance, which you've never seen anything like it before in your life. And you just think it's Gaga, but she's pushed it to another level and she's turned the volume up to 11. And this is just bonkers. It's Gaga on steroids. And that's what I love about her. It's just when you think, you think, oh, this is typical Gaga. And then she gives you something you've never seen before.
Yes.
Lady Gaga's Mayhem era. It's everywhere, right? Yes. I think we'll be talking a bit more about Gaga later on in the countdown. But now, number 9, James.
Number 9.
Well, on Saturday, I went to go see Mickey 17 at the theater. Mickey 17 is Bong Joon-ho's follow-up to Parasite, right? And it stars Robert Pattinson and Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette. And when I tell you that it is completely bonkers and completely brilliant and absolutely worth going to see, it is so good. But then in the last act, it goes off the rails in a way that you are like, what the fuck is going on, and stop it, the same way you did with The Substance.
That's what I was going to say.
Same thing as The Substance, where you go to another place and you're like, why did you not just end it when you could have? But anyway, so Robert Pattinson is Mickey, and Mickey signs up to be an expendable, which means that scientific researchers and stuff use him in dangerous situations, and they let him go out and die. And they send him out to die in these dangerous situations on other planets and things like that. And every time he dies, it advances civilization a little bit more. And then they reprint him. They have his DNA and his memories, and he gets reprinted again. So there's Mickey 1, Mickey 2, Mickey 3, Mickey 4, Mickey. And when we meet him, he's Mickey 17. And he's on an ice planet, on a desolate ice planet. And he falls down a crevasse, and his team just says, well, you're going to die anyway. We're just going to leave you. We aren't going to try and save you. You're just going to die. And he's like, well, this is a horrible way to die. And so they leave him, and he's lying there, and he's thinking, well, this is terrible. And then these giant larva beasts show up, and he's like, well, now I'm going to be eaten by these beasts. And that's an even worse way to die. And every time he dies, it's like, oh, terrible, terrible way to die. And he just gets used to it. But the larva beasts don't eat him. And he manages to crawl out of the crevasse, and he crawls back to the ship, and he gets into the ship, and he's crawling to his bedroom to lie down and relax. And he opens the door, and there's Mickey 18 standing there. And they've reprinted a new Mickey, and that's completely against the rules. So now there are 2 Mickeys, okay? Mickey 17 and Mickey 18. And Mickey 17 is so funny because Robert Pattinson's so brilliant. He said that he was basing Mickey 17 off Ratso Rizzo. Tom, that might resonate with you, from Midnight Cowboy, Dustin Hoffman's character.
It resonates with me. Hello.
Yeah, I'm walking here. And he's sort of this sort of sad sack loser who sort of talks like this. But Mickey 18 is this psycho, just this bisexual psycho nut. And so you've got these 2 Mickeys, and he's got this girlfriend who's all excited because now she can sleep with both of them. And Mickey 18 is like looking at Mickey 17 like, would you have sex with yourself? I mean, it's basically the question we always ask ourselves. And so that you think the movie is going in that direction, and it's brilliant, and it does. And then there's the larva beast and everything like that. Unfortunately, Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette ruin the movie. I love them both. I love Toni Collette. I love her. I love her. Mark Ruffalo is doing this Donald Trump character, okay, where he's a failed a businessman who becomes a failed politician who then moves to space to become a dictator. And he has these fanatical followers who wear red hats. And he talks like he's got his mouth is like a talking anus. He does that Trump thing. He talks like this. He's doing Trump. And
it sounds good. It sounds
no,
good.
well, in the beginning it is, but it goes over the top. And Toni Collette is his screeching harpy of a wife, and they get campier and campier. And Bong Joon-ho needed to rein them in a little bit, and they take over the movie, and it goes off the rails. And you just wish to God that someone would have said, sometimes actors think that they're funnier than they are, or that they're doing a better, like the director needs to be in control, and the director was not in control of their performance.
2 questions. One, at any time in the movie, does the soundtrack employ the song, "Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Mickey." Does it ever come
No,
up?
but I think they use it for the preview for the trailer. They do use it, yes.
And Fenton, my job is to pitch you ideas. I don't know what the project is, but talking anus might be something that we want to develop. Talking anus. That's the 2 things I got out of your review. Thank you.
But no, but it's worth it to see Robert Pattinson just sick his teeth into a role and go bananas with it. It is so fun. The first half is worth the price of admission.
What do you think it is in terms of a trend of movies that go off the rails in the sort of that? It's almost sort of escalate. It's sort of mayhem, I suppose. What is that?
I think it's Marvel movies and comic book movies in general always have that third act where it's just buildings exploding and da-da-da. It's like there's always that over the top third act that can just be chopped off, in my opinion. But I also think there's another weird trend happening. I'm sorry, Tom, 1 second, where all the previews were like Groundhog Day movies, or Living in a Simulation, or Happy Birthday to Me, where she comes back from the it's like people rebooting is in going back to like that whole idea of living in a simulation seems to be all Hollywood is coming up with now. Anyway, Tom.
I agree with you about I've said this a million times, but if I ran for president, which I might be doing, by the way, but my only platform would be movies can't be over 2 hours in the theater.
Yes,
with the exception of Wicked. But I think people are trying to break form in things to make something special, but it doesn't necessarily work. And there's always that struggle we talk about between movies and limited series, and how limited series kind of have, because of the structure, they have the hands up or whatever of breaking form. Anyway,
interestingly, because this could have been, we could have gone through every Mickey and had a whole series of different Mickey, different Mickey every episode. That would have been nice. But we start with 17, so we don't know.
Well, there'll be a prequel. And by the way, you came up with the themes as you were talking of what's going on. It's mayhem and living in a simulated world, which is kind of what we're all experiencing.
There's another theme. There is another theme. So that's Mickey 17 at number 9. Number 8. I'm going to make you very jealous.
Number 8.
I went to see Dorian Gray on Broadway.
Wait, I don't even know about this. Who is it? Who's doing it?
Sarah Snook from Succession.
Oh, right.
She plays 26 roles in a 2-hour plus tour de force. Now, Alan Cumming doing Macbeth, I thought it was incredible. He plays the sole character. It's him. And this is like something extra. It's what? Sunset Boulevard made such intriguing use of TV and film, integrating it into the stage. This takes that to another entirely new level. There's a camera crew on stage the entire time, and they incredibly cleverly cut between angles, moving in and moving out, as she plays these roles. It's not like she plays a role and then goes off and changes. She changes, giving a line to the camera here, turns a completely different character. And it's such a convincing, compelling actress. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It is actually like watching, and this sounds like a diss. It is not. It is high praise. It's like watching a TV show or a movie. It's cut. And she slips in and out of the roles like repartee, bam, 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 bam. So she's playing Lord, blah, blah, and she's playing Dorian Gray, and she's playing the tortured artist. And
after about like 20 minutes, do you get to know each angle as each character? And
honey, it's different angles all the time. I have never seen anything as intricately, evolvingly, it starts actually not at a 10, it starts at an 11. And then it just goes up and up and up and ramps it up. And it's extraordinarily inventive and clever. There's a great moment, several amazing moments. One in which there's one person on the screen, and then through brilliantly figuring out how to stage it, they have another person on the screen, which is her, and another person, which is her. And at one point, there are 7 Sarah Snooks on the screen, all acting, and then she'll pop in as the narrator. It's sort of hallucinogenic, is what it is. And there's another great moment where she, with the portrait of Dorian Gray, beautiful young boy painted by this artist, he notices that he trades his youth for the portrait. He wants to look as young as the portrait does for the rest of his life. And he embarks on a life of debauchery. And so the portrait takes on the appalling, sins on his face. And there's a point at which she brilliantly uses her cell phone and is doing a selfie and is kind of face altering it live on stage in real time, and does a selfie with the audience, and then does this whole face changing work to create this completely distorted face. It's
so cool.
It's quite incredible. And the director is Kip Williams, who is also Australian, because Sarah Snook is Australian. And he's doing Jekyll and Hyde, and he's also doing Dracula. So I'm sort of excited for whatever he does next. And there is a question of like, what is it? There was a news piece recently, I think on CBS, 27 million people in Australia, out of whom they've got Nicole Kidman, Hugh Jackman, Cate Blanchett, Mel Gibson, Margot Robbie, Chris Hemsworth, Sarah Snook, Russell Crowe, Heath Ledger, Naomi Watts, and so many Oscar-winning directors, designers. I mean, like, what? WTF? Where's it all come from?
It's in the water.
2 things. I wonder, how long would Sarah, have you seen any interviews with Sarah? How long did she have to prepare for it? And how it just seems like it's like 2 years that you would need to figure out.
She did this in London.
She did it in London, absolutely, yes. Okay. And sometimes she'll do 2 performances a day. I have no idea how she does it. But she was great in Succession, right?
Oh yeah.
But this is
that there was this, yeah.
Yeah, no,
but it also reminds me of this is the promise that I thought that video performance art had in the early 80s. I thought that everything would be something like this, and I'm glad to see that 40 years later that the vision has come to pass.
I think that's a very good point. I think that the way Broadway is integrating screens and TVs and video is finally come of age. It's not in a sort of doolally experimental,
right? Yeah,
it's very purposeful and makes complete sense. It's extraordinary. Let's take a quick break. RuPaul's Drag Race Live in Las Vegas, 1,000th show on Saturday, March 15th. Get a ticket, come to the Flamingo. But also, if you can't, we're streaming a live broadcast on Wow Presents Plus. So
that will play around the world.
Yes, exactly.
On Wow Presents Plus.
Yes. Break. Have you got a question?
Yes, sir. I recently saw Pee-wee as himself, the new Max HBO documentary. Oh, have you guys seen it?
Well, this is the one where he posthumously comes out.
Yeah, he wasn't out.
No.
Not officially.
Oh. Well, yeah. And I found a couple of interesting trivia questions from that. So my first one is, what was Paul Rubens' first TV appearance as Pee-wee? What TV show?
Okay. All right. We'll have the answer right after the break here on the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. It's Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake. We're counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. But first,
I recently saw the Pee-wee as himself is coming soon to Max. Paul Rubens documentary, and in it he says, or you see, he is the first time Paul Rubens performed as Pee-wee on television was on this television show. What was it?
Well, it would have to be like 79 or 80. And I'm going to think maybe it was something like Elvira or something like her TV show. Or maybe it was like Mike Douglas talk show or something. Like, what do you think, Tom?
I'm going to say it was a Saturday Night Live rip-off show on ABC called Friday Night.
Huh. Because I was going to say SNL, but maybe it was the... what's that? The show that The Simpsons came out of?
Tracy
Ullman. No,
no,
you're all wrong.
Oh.
He went on as a guest on the dating show as
Oh,
Pee-wee Herman.
and
he won.
I didn't know that he was Pee-wee on that, though.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yes. Oh God, I'm such an idiot.
He won the date too.
That's funny.
It's our countdown of the top 10 things of the week. Let's go. Wow, we've reached number 7. Tom.
Number 7.
Running Point, which is the new Kate Hudson series on Netflix. It's about Jeannie Buss, who is the current manager of the Lakers. Her father ran the Lakers. She has, in real life, Jeannie Buss has brothers, all this turmoil back and forth. Jeannie ended up on top, the daughter that you didn't think was going to make it. It reminds a lot of people of a Cameron Diaz movie called Any Given Sunday, where Al Pacino plays her dad. There's a football franchise from '99. But in this is Running Point is produced by Mindy Kaling. They put it, Jeannie Buss is definitely involved as a consultant, and they have moved it into present time. It's the LA Waves. And there's a lot of good people, Brenda songs, and it's fast paced. It's a half hour. It's fun. It's clever. There's a breakout star, and that star is Chet Hanks.
No.
Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson's
Chet Hayes, the rapper, the white rapper.
Problematic son, the white rapper. There's one guy in the team who's really kind of handsome, who's just covered in tats in a way that you can't imagine any actor would ever allow themselves to be that covered in tats. And he's the asshole, for lack of, he's the player she cannot, convince or get to do anything right, and he's really inappropriate and really flies in the face of authority. And then I'm searching afterwards. It's Chet Hanks. It is brilliant. I want to find out the casting story. Did Mindy Kaling see him at a party and said, "That's my asshole basketball player," or did he come in and read? Or it's just I don't know. I thought Chet Hanks was a crazy person to be avoided, was on some kind of crash course. He's brilliant in this. I don't know if it's Art Imitating Life or the others.
That you should never write anybody off, that these people have these online personas and we don't know the depths that they have.
And listen, he may have dirty politics. I'm not here to forgive him. I'm just telling you, in this piece of comedy, he is the breakout star. Kate Hudson's fabulous. Everyone's fabulous. But you're who is that guy? And why don't I know him? And why is he so tall and so covered in tattoos? It's Chet Hanks. The only other little footnote is, I probably don't remember, but Winning Season, which starred John C. Reilly, was on HBO a couple years ago, and I was obsessed with that. It's the same story, although that was set in the 70s, and it was told more from the dad's point of view. So they're using all the pieces of the chicken when it comes to the LA Lakers in the 80s, as Fenton would say.
Well, you sent us the trailer for it, and I watched it, and I mean, I love Kate Hudson. I will watch her in anything. I love Mindy Kaling. I think she's brilliant. But it's hard for me to connect to a basketball TV series. Now
that you know that Chet Hanks is waiting, maybe you'll give it
my interest, and I might have to do it because that is an interesting little factoid.
It's been picked up for a season 2. It's absolutely fine television. I'm not trying to damn it with faint praise. I'm not saying if you don't see it, your life won't change. But it's fun to watch, and you have to at least check out an episode or two for Chet Hanks. You have to do that at least for me. Do it for me.
Where can I see it? Where can I see it?
On Netflix.
Oh, Netflix. All right. Oh, right.
Little upstart streamer called.
I know, right? Number 6, James.
Number 6.
Well, I'm going to tell you about a TV series that you absolutely must be watching, both of you. I swear to God, when I tell you that Paradise is the best show on television right now, it is the best show in 5 years since Succession. When I tried talking about it a while ago, and I wasn't able to tell you much about it, but the season is done now, and they've been picked up for season 2. It stars James Marsden as the president. I love James Marsden. And Sterling K. Brown as his number one bodyguard in the Secret Service, right? And it starts off, and within the first 15 minutes, they put him to bed, and the next morning they go to wake him up, and he doesn't answer. They knock down the door. He's lying in a pool of blood. He's been murdered. And so you think that this is going to be a murder mystery told in flashbacks. We meet the other Secret Service people. We meet the people in the house. We meet the cabinet. We meet the people surrounding him. And you think that it's going to be about that. And it is, to a certain extent. There's a lot of flashbacks. Sterling K. Brown hated him. He's sort of a feckless idiot. James Marsden was sort of a young president. He was sort of an idiot. And Sterling K. Brown is very laced up very tight, and so they sort of clash a little bit. But anyway, about halfway through the first episode, he's jogging. No, this is near the end of the first episode. He's jogging and he's running around the town, and you're thinking to yourself, well, these sets look a little cheesy, a little cheap. Did they not spend a lot of money on this? And you're thinking to yourself, what is this, the Universal backlot? Like, I see Wisteria Lane right there. I see Cabot Cove. Like, what? Did they just not spend any money on this? And then he runs past this sign, and the sign says, due to technical difficulties, daybreak will be 6 minutes late today. And all of a sudden he looks up, and the sun starts rising, and you see that it's on a string attached to a glass dome, and they are living in a domed city, and the camera keeps pulling back and back and back, and they are in the middle of a mountain, and the earth has been destroyed by nuclear holocaust, and they are the sole survivors. They have managed to save 28,000 people living in a domed city underneath a mountain. And so then it becomes a murder mystery, but it's also sort of a scientific, it's sort of a sci-fi thriller, right? And so each episode that happens after that, everybody gets an episode, and it's sort of like Lost in that respect, where you learn their backstories, you learn their things. And by episode 4, there's the twists start coming fast and like what you think you know, you don't know, and you think you know someone, and then that person dies, and then something else and and the 4th episode is like just blows your mind, and you're like, oh, why? Everything changes. What you think you know, you don't know it all, and everything you thought. So episode 5, 6, it's a runaway train, and you're just going it is going faster and faster, and just crazier and crazier. And by episode 7, when I tell you it is one of the best, no, I'm not saying a thing, but it is one of the best episodes of television ever. It is up there with The Reigns of Castamere or Battle of the Bastards on Game of Thrones. In that, there's high praise if anyone watches Game of Thrones. It is from the minute 1 to the 49-minute mark. You are on the edge of your seat. You are shouting, you're screaming, you're crying. At the end, I was sobbing. And I was talking to Beth about it yesterday in the parking lot, and she said that she was the same thing. She said she was screaming at the TV. She was throwing things. She was just this and that. And then afterwards, she turned it off and she had to go to bed. And she said that night she had the weirdest, most disturbing, upsetting dreams she's ever had in her life. And when I tell it, so there's 8 episodes, and I'm only up to 7 right now. But when I tell you, this 7th it's Emmy all around for everybody. It is so good. And when I tell you that we would be talking about it like we talk about White Lotus or Succession, blah, 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 I want you guys to promise me to try and give it a shot.
I'm going to jump in tonight. Michelle Visage keeps posting like, oh my God, about the series.
There was on both episode 4 and episode 7, social media. What? Oh my God. What?
That is Paradise on Hulu.
Number 5.
James, that is a really hard number to follow, but I'm going to calm us down a bit by talking about a podcast, because we don't talk that often here about podcasts, but I'm kind of falling in love with them, and I've always been fascinated by the Congo. I ever since I read Heart of Darkness, I've just been sort of appalled and compelled and curious, and I have to admit, I've really not known the history of the Congo. And I came across one of my favorite podcasts is The Rest is History. And they do the Nazis, and it really is fantastic. They multi-part series about the Titanic is amazing. And I just saw that they've done a 3-part series called Horror in the Congo, and it tells the history of the Congo. And there's also a bonus extra episode that is all about the Heart of Darkness and what elements in the story are based on truth. Because everyone who's seen Apocalypse How knows that that is the sort of modern version of Heart of Darkness. But the actual Heart of Darkness, which came out in 1899, was based on the colonization of the Congo. And I'm listening to this podcast, and it's sort of fascinating because, back in the day, the interior of Africa was just a blank space on the map. And particularly with the Congo, you couldn't kind of get to the interior because there were all these rapids for like hundreds of miles. And even though if you got past that, it was just amazing, you couldn't get past it because everyone died of diseases and things on the way. I mean, even the natives too. And the story really tells the story of King Leopold of Belgium. And this was a sort of the high Victorian time of colonization. And the whole point about empire, I'm not defending it for a second, but it was sort of like they were bringing scientific purpose to the it wasn't just like grabbing things for the sake of grabbing them. The sort of wrapping or the motive was like, yes, we're bringing science to these
and
parts
religion.
of the world.
We're bringing Christianity,
moral uplift.
yes.
Scientific.
These savages, yes,
Yeah. And so King Leopold gets together a whole bunch of nations because Belgium, they don't have any colonies. And King Leopold, who's a nasty, freakish child turned king, King Leopold is like something out of Game of Thrones. Maybe that will grab your interest, James. He's like one of those distorted, nasty monarch power people. And he doesn't have a colony. He's like, how am I going to get a colony? So he sets up the International African Association, a sort of combination of countries all doing this charitable non-profit organization. At least that's what it says. That's what the sign on the door says. But in reality, it is a private company wholly owned by King Leopold and just there to make money. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this podcast, this story is somewhat parallel to what is happening in America right now with fundamentally unabashed profit grabbing, money, corruption, exploitation. You don't need me to draw the parallels. It's pretty self-evident. And what he does is, so he sets up this mission, and basically that he gets Stanley. Now you remember the famous Dr. Livingston, I presume. Yes. Yes. Stanley became famous because he found Livingston, who was lost, I guess, while looking for the Nile. And Stanley goes on this second expedition. In fact, he wants Stanley's second expedition after finding Livingston is to find the source of the Nile, which he decides to do by going up the Congo. Sounds like a good idea. I suppose like somewhere they like meet or something. Connect? But anyway, King Leopold realizes, he gets Stanley in and meets with him and says, look, go on this mission and I'll pay you and I'll give you all the resources you need. And he set up a station, which was Leopoldville, which is now today the capital of Congo, Kinshasa. And he does this mission. And this is the basic story of Heart of Darkness, of Stanley goes up the river. He negotiates the rapids. They take steamships in little bits, carry them through the jungle, past all the rapids, and then reassemble them all.
That's insane.
And then, because he wants everything, King Leopold wants everything to be legal, even though the Congolese don't have a written language, he gets them to sign all these treaties. And Stanley gets 450 chiefs from 450 different tribes to sign treaties in which they exchange for one piece of cloth per month, all their land, all their labor in perpetuity. I mean, just stunning, appalling corruption. And that's as far as I got. There's like I got one more episode to go, but it is so good. It's
the
the rest is
manpower it must take to take a steamship across the jungle bit by bit. I mean, you must have to have 1,000 people to do it.
and
That's
lots of
insane.
people died in the process. I mean,
Yes,
it's
and
horrifically
carrying a
brutal.
steamship through the jungle is insane.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
there's that Fitzcarraldo movie where they're in South America. They actually carried a whole steamship up the Amazon. It's I guess it was a bit of a thing, right?
Oh, that's insane. You know, I've never seen Apocalypse Now. Do I need to?
You've read Heart
Well,
of Darkness, right?
I've read Heart of Darkness. Yeah.
I think it's a good film, but I don't think it really satisfies a version of Heart of Darkness. And there's that very famous
I don't
scene
think I've
of
read Heart of
Valkyrie.
Darkness since 8th grade. Do I need to go back and revisit that now?
I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread Heart of Darkness and reread the Portrait of Dorian Gray because
yeah, I did that a couple years ago, and it is satisfying. It holds up, boy.
right, and they're both for their time short novels, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're almost novellas, but they're like such epic masterpieces. All right, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. We got to take a break. Blake, have you got a question?
I do. It's another one about Pee-wee. Pee-wee's big adventure was his big, transition to the silver screen, and Tim Burton directed it. Who introduced Pee-wee to Tim Burton?
Oh, we'll have the answer here on the Wow Report right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. Benson, James, and Tom, and Blake with a question.
I have another question about Pee-wee Herman. This time about his movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Tim Burton directed it. Who introduced Pee-wee to Tim Burton?
Tom?
This time I'm going to go with Elvira.
It has to be somebody from the Groundlings. So I would either say Lorraine Newman or Phil Hartman or Elvira.
Good guesses. Fenton, you got a guess?
Oh, God, I feel I haven't got the answer. I don't know. No idea.
Shelley Duvall.
Oh, small, creepy world.
It is. Shelley Duvall was in a short film directed by Tim Burton. Frankenweenie, I believe is what it was.
Well, I thought Frankenweenie was later. I didn't realize that was before Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I think he had done a short of Frankenweenie.
Oh, he did that at school at the School of Arts or whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so number 4.
Number 4.
I know we talked about a lot of people that passed away last week, and I focused a lot of attention on Roberta Flack, but I have to go back because this week there was her memorial service was held, I believe, in Washington, D.C., and it was videotaped. And my friend Abe Sylvia posted, I mean, the whole ceremony. I've watched big chunks of it. It's beautiful, lots of speeches, like I think. There's a couple performances, one of which I can't even explain to you. And I recommend that you all Google this, but it's Lauryn Hill and Wycliffe singing Killing Me Softly with his song at Roberta Flack's funeral. Lauryn Hill is a character who we all revere. She's I think she's the first Black female or the second to win Record of the Year, but we also know that she's been very troubled, and we got, such an amazing piece of her. And then she seemed to go away, and I've not discounted her, but you always hear jokes about how, she doesn't show up for concerts when she has them and all this kind of stuff in Bad Blood. She looks spectacular, like a goddess. She has her voice has a different timbre, and she sits there and sings. And there's something about the flow of Roberta Flack's spirit and Lauryn Hill's voice and that song coming together at her memorial service. I sent you guys a clip. I'm not saying you saw it, but I can sit here and talk about it. It's not going to do a thing. You have to Google Lauryn Hill, Roberta Flack funeral and Killing Me Softly. It is spectacular. And equally differently spectacular is Valerie Simpson of
Ashford and
Simpson, who's up there in age. She comes to the piano and she starts playing at the piano and talking, which I don't know how people can do that, how they can accompany themselves, speaking. And she's playing and she sings, "Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Ain't nothing like the real thing." And she wrote that song, and she's just talking about how Roberta is the real thing. And she goes on in detail, focusing on the many years that Roberta has been in a wheelchair and very sick, and what a giving, she shed a light on her illness in a way that was so inspiring, because it's, ooh, illness, ooh, I don't want to talk about it, ooh, I don't want to frame her that way. And she tells one little thing. She goes, and she's doing this while she's playing and punctuating is something about the real thing. And she talks about how she went to Roberta like 10 years ago or something, because Valerie Simpson, legend of her own, was offered the role of Mama in Broadway's Chicago, and she's like, I don't want to do it. And she goes, and Roberta's eyes flashed open. She goes, let's get the part and let's go through it. So even in her illness, she was this giving, because Roberta was a music teacher first and foremost, and everybody, Felicia Rashad speaks. It's a spectacular celebration of life. And I could be watching all these other shows, and I should Paradise, and I will, but I watched that last night. And again, and if you nothing else, just the 4 unadulterated minutes of Lauryn Hill singing Killing Me Softly, it's just spectacular. Anyway, there, I said it.
Rest in perfection, Roberta Flack, right? James, number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3, I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about last week on Saturday Night Live when Lady Gaga hosted, and she did a really spectacular job. I mean, she, like you said, Tom, she's so watchable. Everything she does is so good. Her performance, Abracadabra, and what was the other one? Mayhem, I think, is the other song. And
Killer,
right? Yeah. And she was just on it, and her voice is just, absolute perfection. And she does the dance that she recreates the video so beautifully, everything. Some of the skits were hit or miss, as Saturday Night Live always is. There was a really stupid where she's doing the new riding luggage that you ride. Have you seen this at airports? She does one where she's riding down the highway on her luggage, and it's sort of like a one joke that they just as Saturday Night Live does, they just stretch it out to like 6 minutes. And it just,
who does that remind you of? Someone who just grinds a joke.
Well, yes, okay. But then she did another. She did Easy Run mascara, a commercial that was
hilarious.
That was really hilarious. And then the last one where it was the 30-year-olds all using the word slay and left no crumbs and mama, daddy, like that. And then they sing this song about no more slay, no more gag. It's really good. That was really good. But I wanted to talk about one thing that they did where they were in a Friendly's restaurant, and to get the free cake, they lied about having a birthday so that everyone comes, or the waiters come over and sing. And when they lied about it and they get caught, and suddenly it's like becomes this like satanic ritual, and these Satan worshipers come out, and you are doomed for lying. And they bring about Lashmudi or whatever, some Babylonian god who rises up, and then they're playing drums and all this stuff. Well, when I tell you that immediately I was on X at the time, and MAGA went bananas, okay? And I want to read you a few things that were said. Lady Gaga openly performs a satanic ritual in an SNL skit where a demonic entity named Lamashku was summoned. One person drinks blood, signifying a chilling rebaptu of Mother of Beasts. And then someone else was saying, parody devil worship is still devil worship. I won't watch this thing. And then someone else said, it seems to be a common theme with her blood rituals, doesn't it? And then pure evil. This is real. They pretend it's mockery. Just on and on and on and on and on. And then it turned into, I don't know if you guys know about adrenochrome. Do you know about adrenochrome?
I don't.
Okay, adrenochrome is something that Q came up with, in which they said that there's a cabal of Hollywood stars, Oprah, Tom Hanks, Lady Gaga, Hillary Clinton, and Jeff Bezos. And to stay young, what they do is they murder children. And at the height of their terror, they slit their throats, and they drink the adrenaline that has rushed. At the height of adrenaline, that you drink the adrenaline of a terrorized child as it's murdered. And that's what Oprah and Lady Gaga and Tom Hanks are doing to stay young. And for some reason, MAGA believes this with all their heart. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever. There's nobody is killing children in a pizza parlor. That is not happening.
Surgery. It's called plastic surgery.
Exactly. It's called buccal fat removal and
Ozempic.
Yeah. But for some reason they believe that that Lady Gaga is the leader of this, and it's so sad and upsetting and disturbing that we live in this world.
Okay, my takeaway from your story, and I listened to all of it, was when you said I was on X while I was watching it. I thought you meant ecstasy.
Well, that too.
It was
we call it Molly now, Tom.
It was 1995 for me, and you were on X. All right.
We call it Molly, baby.
X, aka Twitter, is a mind-bending substance, I think.
I don't know why I do it. It's so depressing.
I still believe, and I keep saying this every week, and get your Blue Sky account going. I looked for you and I couldn't find you, James. Just so we have a place to go.
See?
Well, what's your name on it?
It's JSJ _.
Well, thanks so much for doing
it. Blue Sky, World of Wonder, social media.
All right. I get it.
All right. Well, okay, let's move on. Number two. James, thank you to you, because you texted me and said, are you watching this? And you were, of course, referring to the LA District Attorney, the new one, who is kind of MAGA, right? Like, certainly Republican. He technically is independent, but formally Republican, and blah, blah, blah. He's the new LA District Attorney, and Nathan Hochman. Is it Hochman or Hochman? I don't really care. He held a press conference to say that in addition to blaming his predecessor for creating a golden age of criminals, because he basically refused to try kids as adults, refused to allow a death penalty, he said that he felt that the Menendez brothers did not deserve to be re-sentenced, did not deserve to have their case re-examined, and that they are still, quote, an unreasonable risk of danger. They still pose an unreasonable risk of danger to the community. Something that is patently absurd, number one. Number two, he revisited, I guess, the popular belief at the time that it was the abuse excuse, that the Menendez brothers were lying about being abused by their parents. And he was like, well, they just used it as a fiction because they were lying about having committed a murder. It's so infuriating. And
this guy needs to come off as hard on crime, so he can't make this one of his first acts. My question, knowing very little about the background or how the legal system works, why didn't they push it through before this guy came through? Why don't can't they act quicker? Can't they make things happen?
That's just it. It went up to Gavin Newsom, and he thought it was too hot of a political issue, I think, and so he just equivocated on it until it was too late.
But he's doing something else now, right?
Well, there is still the possibility that Newsom could. There's something Newsom can do. He can offer clemency to the brothers should other convictions fail.
I don't think he will, though.
I heard on the radio that he is sending it to like the parole board for them to evaluate, for them to give him the information.
The supreme irony is, campaigning on the law and order ticket, I guess, ultimately answering to a president who is a convicted felon and rapist, who just freed and pardoned 1,500 criminals who took part in it.
He's not a rapist; he's a sexual offender.
And then, the Tate brothers literally re-imported to this country.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The straight sexual offenders are fine, but when you have two gay, people who are sexually abused, they're the villains.
Well, the other thing, of course, the reason that the whole idea that it should get reevaluated, that their sentence should be reevaluated, the idea of the sexual abuse has become a more recognized thing, number one. But number two, subsequent evidence that came out that wasn't in either trial established that this was a pattern of behavior.
That he had molested one of the boys from
Nudo.
And when you say that they haven't, that they aren't rehabilitated, that they're a danger, if anyone has been rehabilitated, it's those boys who have been doing more good work in prison than anybody else, and they're just ignoring all of that because he's feeding it to the red meat to the base.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, the number one thing this week that made us go wow here on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake. We've been counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. I have misgivings about number one.
Number one.
Well, I just wanted to say that I never in my lifetime thought that I would see the White House turned into a Cal Worthington used car lot commercial. He's out. Did you see this? Did you see the Teslas roll up in front of the White House and he comes out with Elon and they start talking about how great Teslas are? And he said to the camera, Elon is a much maligned guy lately, and he deserves to be taken care of, and we deserve to make sure that his stock doesn't tumble. So I'm going to buy a Tesla right now. And
which he didn't really buy. He doesn't know how to drive. He never sat in one before. There was some audio of him just like chitter chattering. He was an idiot. But that's disgusting. I have to also, just because we're running out of time, I have to also say, let's not pay. There's so much that was destroyed this week. They're defunding, shutting down, firing people from the Department of Education. Like, honk if you're a member of a product of public school system in America. That's frightening. The idea of privatizing the post office or having the census people work in the post office. The idea that they'll have all of our information for their own purposes and to gerrymander the districts. It's just there's what am I missing? What else happened this week that is of biblical proportions of disaster for our democracy?
Immediately when Trump says we need to save this poor man because the Tesla stock is going down, I was on X again and everyone was like, he does so much for the country. He really does.
There's half the country that believes everything he says and does.
And then
Trump didn't always like Elon Musk. He said that previously on Truth Social, he said, he called electric cars things that don't drive long enough, driverless cars that crash, or rocket ships to nowhere. So it's like, there's a
dig, baby, dig. He hates electric cars until now, which is again part of his chaos making, which works for him, unfortunately.
And he also said that we're going to do for Tesla what we did for Goya beans in my first term. Remember when he and Ivanka were eating Goya beans and the stock went up? Well, he somehow thinks that the MAGA crowd has $100,000 to spare for a Tesla, which I don't know what he thinks that I still those damn swastikas.
And people who do own Teslas apparently are rebranding them and like sticking Honda signs on losing the Tesla imagery and putting like Hyundai and Ford.
You have distanced yourself from Tesla users. Those people who drive Tesla, those horrible people. I just don't understand. But what I hear they're doing.
It was a beautiful car, and I no longer have it, and I'm no longer a Tesla driver, and I deleted the app as well. Thank you.
Remember, I got you that before. He went psycho crazy. I got you a bumper sticker, and now
thank you very much. I am a person of small courage, and before I returned it to the lot, which actually I made my assistant do, I put the stickers on.
Oh, good. Well, now they make stickers that I'm going to buy you that says I bought this after Elon went crazy that you put on your Hyundai.
Right. Oh, that's all we got time for this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you, James. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Blake. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow. Wow.